This is TWiT.
So yesterday, the UK government announced a suite of online safety laws, which, I mean, and this is what we saw coming. And this is sort of like, we know that the GDPR happened within the EU. So now the intent here in the UK is to hold the publishers of online social media platforms liable for the harmful behavior spreading through their platforms. And, I guess my feeling is this like the inevitable legislative blowback from what has been the previous practice of providers, social media providers, wanting to try to sell the idea that they're just providing a utility and that they're not in any way responsible for the actions of the people who use this information utility that they're providing. And unfortunately, that strategy has, as we know, backfired a lot. This paper, which is, I think, was 102 pages, and believe me, I'm not going to drag our listeners through it.
Page 1. Chapter 2.
But for the next 3 months, and this is not yet legislation. This is the slow grinding wheels of legislation beginning to turn, and so the first couple of teeth of those gears are meshing. So this is intended to be open and available for 3 months until July 1st. So just a little less than 3 months. And to give our listeners some sense for it, they said in the introduction, what they called the online harms white paper sets out the government's plans for a world-leading package of online safety measures that also supports innovation and a thriving digital economy. This package comprises legislative and non-legislative measures and will make companies more responsible for their users' safety online. And of course, we're going to march out the kids, so especially children and other vulnerable groups. The white paper proposes establishing in law a new duty of care toward users, which will be overseen by an independent regulator. Companies will be held to account for tackling a comprehensive set of online harms ranging from illegal activity and content to behaviors which are harmful but not necessarily illegal. This consultation aims to gather views, so that is this paper, this thing that's out for the next 90 days, aims to gather views on various aspects of the government's plans for regulation and tackling online harms, including, and we got 5 bullet points here, the online services in scope of the regulatory framework, which is to say which online services would be in scope for this framework, options for appointing an independent regulatory body to implement, oversee, and enforce the new regulatory framework, the enforcement powers of an independent regulatory body, potential redress mechanisms for online users, and measures to ensure regulation is targeted and proportionate for the industry. And I pulled a bunch of points out. There were 49 numbered paragraphs in this 102-page thing. And I think I pretty much characterized it well enough. We know what its focus is. Paragraph 12 had some bullet points, which I'll just quickly cover. They said, our vision is for a free, open, and secure internet, freedom of expression online, yada, yada. They actually didn't say that. An online environment where companies take effective steps to keep their users safe and where criminal, terrorist, and hostile foreign state activity is not left to contaminate the online space. So basically, we know what they're saying. They're saying we're going to make, the likes of Facebook and Google and Twitter much more responsible for the content they're carrying than they have been to date. So things are going to change is the whole issue here. And so on. Rules and norms for the internet that discourage harmful behavior. They said the UK is a thriving digital economy with a prosperous ecosystem of companies developing innovation in online safety. Citizens who understand the risks of online activity, challenge unacceptable behaviors, and know how to access help if they experience harm online, with children receiving extra protection. A global coalition of countries all taking coordinated steps to keep their citizens safe online, and renewed public confidence and trust in online companies and services. So this is the beginning of probably a reform of some sort for, which we've seen in various forms in the past. We've seen people talking about it. This is the beginning of something, and we'll certainly, to the degree that it affects the security and privacy space, we'll be talking about it, as I'm sure, for years to come.
Yeah, and I'm always curious on something like this, or at least, in the past, the past short term with GDPR and all these other things that are happening overseas around privacy and protection and security, how this ultimately trickles down to places outside of the UK, because that creates a very large, not impossible, I imagine, but a large hurdle for technology companies to be heavily regulated in one area and not in the other. Maybe it's just easier for them to roll it out to everyone. You know what I mean?
Well, and Jason, you can't go anywhere now without acknowledging cookies. Yeah. Everywhere you go, you have to say, yes, okay, fine. I know I use it.
Perfect
so
point.
that's hit the entire globe because of GDPR saying, we're going to sue your pants off unless you let people know you use cookies. Well, everyone does. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what? It's like, look, we have a web page. Yes. Fine. I clicked. I acknowledge you. I acknowledge you have a web page. That's why I'm here. Oh,
I acknowledge that when I hit enter on the search query.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And as I think the cookies example is the perfect example, right? Like through this, at least here in the U.S., we in essence have become somewhat desensitized to what that actually means, what that acknowledgement, by clicking OK actually means. It makes it very easy for those regulations. We hear about regulations in the U.S., all the time now as relates to technology companies. It makes it even easier, less of a hurdle for those efforts to roll out over here in a more official sense. So probably the same could be said about this if and when it becomes what it is.
Well, and it's just cluttered our browsers with visual spam. The fact that you go to a site and you have to acknowledge that they're using cookies. In fact, they did when I was researching this story, the UK government site put its banner at the top and had me click on it to acknowledge that it was improving my experience online. It's like, no, you're not. You just made me click this. That did not improve my experience online. Sorry about that. And the fact that I clicked it to acknowledge that it improved my experience, well, you gave me no choice.
You must like this. Click here to like this.
Yes.